Let's speak now to political analyst, Professor Sethulego Matebesi, who joins us for some insights into what we saw right there. He has been keeping an eye on it. And Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Just your sense overall.
Hi, good afternoon, Vuyo, and good afternoon to the viewers. Well, for me, it was, pretty what we've become accustomed to, where the president will come, I would say, even putting a bit of vuma in his steps to go to the podium. But this time around, he has actually been standing there. But what was striking is when Malema was asking a question, I could see that he was actually looking at the deputy speaker, and that for me was a sign of trying to recover before he answers that particular question about Elon Musk, but also a variety of questions which I believe that he responded well to them, but there were instances where I strongly believe the president was a little bit long-winded, and that was perhaps a tactic to try and circumvent in responding directly to some of these questions, because we have seen some of the consequences of answering questions without thinking, because we already had in the past situations where the president responded to questions and then he was later on taken on, and even investigations on some of his responses. So I think for me, he responded well to the questions, but also these questions and responses gives us a glimpse of where we stand as a country, or our response to various issues, like, for instance, AGOA, our relationship with America, and our internal challenges such as huge employment and equitable access to our economy.
I also got that sense, Prof, that although he tried to sidestep some questions or not answer directly, but generally speaking, or overall, he did actually speak from, respond, and he seemed pretty well prepared as well. Let's start with the United States of America. Did it give any indication? He did say that, the government wants to venture into the East, but not at the expense of course, relations with the United States of America, and the government still wants in on AGOA.
Yes, most definitely, and also the special envoys, obviously there was also a question, but to say if you had personal consultations with certain individuals, how will this advantage or actually consolidate South Africa's stance? But I think for me, it's actually the right approach, because we are the ones who's going to lose. Yes, it's fine. We can now throw around slants and pronouncements that we will not be bullied. And that is the right approach, because as a leader, you also have to take the country into confidence to say, but you will take the interests of this country to heart, and perhaps that demonstrate that. But behind the scenes, the president and our leaders, I strongly believe that they know the implications of losing that particular the AGOA situation, and that would have huge implications for South Africa. And that's why the president also labored the point that many South Africans outside of this country also has to play their part, and by ensuring that they do promote, and enhance the image of the country.
And with that, of course, also defending the right to meet someone as influential, as he says, as Elon Musk, notwithstanding the fact that, subsequently, Julius Malema took issue with him speaking to or being comfortable with a racist, as he called him.
Yes, most definitely. But he even went further, Julius Malema, by indicating that perhaps the president is undermining the role that is supposed to be played by the ministry. But I mean, the president is the chief executive of this country. And from time to time, as he correctly indicated, we will perhaps not be privy to how the government operates behind the scenes. But I don't think there's anything wrong with Julius Malema's, as one of the opposition party leaders, assessment of the situation to say perhaps this is the perception that is being created there, that the president is meeting certain individuals. But in any case, it's going to be very difficult for the president not to take lead. But that's why I believe, and this is what South Africans have to take, this is democracy at work, where in some countries we don't have situations like this, where a president will just take decisions and he will never be answerable to or accountable to not only the ministers or the parliamentarians, but to South Africans. And this is a clear demonstration, yet again, although some may not agree with some of the questions or even with some of the responses, but at the end of the day, this just is indicative of how our democracy works. But I believe there also the president did provide an answer, and otherwise, if he sidestepped that, that would also have been created a situation that perhaps the president is not sincere in answering or responding to that particular question.
We did get a bit of an update on the situation affecting our troops in the DRC, although I got a sense or feeling that the answer didn't go far enough. Perhaps it had a lot to do with the fact that it was a question from an ANC MP, which I felt was a bit of a sweetheart question. It didn't go far enough to get, that under the skin feel of what is actually going on in the DRC and how our troops are keeping there.
Yeah, well, sadly, this has been the stance of our government, and perhaps understandably. Look, some of us are not experts on the field of security and all that, but also there's absolutely nothing wrong to take the country into confidence, and especially where our soldiers are losing their lives. Remember, these are men and women who come from families, and at the end of the day, yes, we may moan as a country, but where it matters the most, it is those families that are affected. And one soldier may even feed up to 20 people, indirectly or indirectly. And that is a problem that we have here, where it seems as if we're getting muted responses, sugar-coated responses to what I believe is a very critical issues. If there are issues of national security that perhaps we are not supposed to know, that is something else. But I mean, there was a direct question, and I also got a sense that perhaps that question might have just come through to try and not, approach or respond directly to that particular question about the DRC. But one thing that also came through is that, yes, our troops will only withdraw when it is necessary, but also South Africa has a role to play in Africa. But at the end of the day, one thing that our leaders need to do, including the president, is to understand that South Africans are not naturally violent and they're not naturally ill-disciplined. And when they've got answers and when they're taken into confidence, and they know what is going on, that in itself will, breach the trust deficits between citizens and the government of today.
Professor Matebesi, let me thank you very much for your time and for your insights. Unfortunately, that's where we're going to leave it for now. Professor Matebesi, of course, speaking on the back of the President's answers to questions that were posed by MPs in Parliament.